All right, what's going on YouTube? It's your boy Rocky in real time, and I'm back at you with another video. And in today's video, I'm going to discuss basically all my expenses and really how much it cost me to move from the United States to Brazil, right? I'm gonna break this video up into sections because there's different types of expenses. And I want you guys to realize that this was a process, that it didn't happen overnight. I had to take several trips here, and I recommend you do that as well. It doesn't even have to be with Brazil, any country you're trying to move to, if you're trying to be an expat, I think and I recommend that it's best that you take at least 2 to 3 trips there and do some reconnaissance, some research. Even before you even go on your first trip, try and do a little bit of research as to, what the politics are, what the living expenses are. Try and find out as much as you can. And if you have a chance, try and look up some blogs or vlogs of people who actually live there already, of other expats that live there already, and see what they're saying, see what their life is like. And I'm talking about real expats, people who are making videos like this, like living expenses, apartment expenses, how to get your documents, things like that. So yeah, I get this question a lot, so I really just wanted to just make it into a video because that would just I could provide value at scale. And in the link of the description, or the description of this video, I'll include links to a page called CNBC Money Make It, or CNBC Make It. And there's like different videos of people who did what I did. Like CNBC, they make these videos, they interview Gen Z people and millennials who have like moved abroad and who are taking advantage of geo arbitrage, which is, if you don't know, making your money in dollars or in pounds or in euros and living somewhere where that's not the currency, like living in the Caribbean or Central or South America, or maybe somewhere in Eastern Europe where it's a lot cheaper, or somewhere in Africa too, where it's a lot cheaper to live off the dollar, the euro, or the pound, right? So that's geo arbitrage, and that's basically what I'm doing right now, because I'm from New York. I've lived in New York for most of my life, and in comparison to a lot of the expenses, it's much cheaper here in Brazil. And also, I want to start a business as well. So if any of you, for those of you that know about like business and business process, you're in the red for about the first couple of years, maybe 3 to 5 years if it's a brick and mortar business. But like online business, it's like a lot less, maybe like 1 to 2 years. So you need to be able to support yourself. And like the fact of the matter is, if I want to start an online business in the United States and I want to save up that money before I do that, I'm going to need to save up a lot more money. I'm talking about like probably like because rent alone in New York City for a 2-bedroom apartment is $24,000. So multiply that times 2, that's almost $50,000 just in rent alone. And your other living expenses, you're looking at like $75,000, $80,000 just to, live comfortably while you're working on your business, not to mention the business expenses. So that is like dramatically like slashed by moving here. So that's one of my main reasons to move here. All right, so let's get into the expenses. The first thing I want to talk about is, like I said, it's a process. I did not just move here. I took several trips, right? I took 4 trips to be exact. And I broke my expenses down into 3 different parts. My flight expenses and travel expenses, and my living in Airbnb expenses, and my food and just general expenses, buying souvenirs, going to this place, going to that place, doing a little bit of touristy things. I knew I was gonna move here, so like I didn't really do too much of the touristy things, but I included a little bit of that because you're in a new country, every now and then you're gonna want to like kind of see something new, do something new. So yeah, I'm gonna break it down. So my first trip, right? My first trip, so the flight expenses, I spent like 6 weeks on my first trip, and so I flew to different cities. I flew into Salvador, I flew into Rio, I flew into Sao Paulo. I kind of researched a lot about the country, the politics, all this other stuff. Living expenses and all that stuff in different cities, and I kind of wanted to experience every city and just see how life was in these different cities before I actually chose a city. So I had a few cities in mind, Rio de Janeiro, Sao Paulo, Salvador, and I was also considering Recife as well. I didn't really want to live anywhere too south because of what I heard about the weather. The weather is kind of like rainy, like it would be in Seattle. It's like kind of warm but then rainy, and that kind of thing. So I wasn't really feeling that. Plus, it's a little bit conservative, and not that many people that look like me. So I was like, all right, cool. I think the Northeast is where I'm going to stay, or maybe the Southeast, in one of those bigger cities like Rio de Janeiro. I was also considering Belo Horizonte as well, which is in the state of Minas Gerais. So yeah, all right, back to the expenses. So for my flight expenses, I spent around $750 my first trip, right? So I spent $750 my first trip. And in total, all the Airbnbs, I spent 6 weeks, like I said, all the Airbnbs, because I went to different cities and all that other stuff. it was about like $1,100. And the average range in price for the Airbnbs I was staying at was like $40 to $60 a night. And that can get you a really nice apartment here in Brazil. And then throughout all of my trips, I think my food expenses, or like throughout my first trip, I think my food expenses were probably like food and general stuff that I was just doing was probably like maybe like $600, right? So yeah, and the second trip, I had just narrowed down where I wanted to stay. I love Rio. It's a great city, but I also had to consider the fact that I'm going to be working here. Like, you know, I got my job in the States that I'm working, and I'm living here, and so I need to focus. Like, Rio is really, really fun, and it's like really a cool city to just chill and party. And like all of these people that come here, and I see like make video and content about like Brazil and Rio de Janeiro, they're in Zona Sul the whole time. Like, I'm like, whoa, because like I started doing some research, and there are some expats that are like going out there and all the other stuff. But then I like started watching Brazilians. You know, I started watching Brazilians and like how they live and like their videos and stuff. And you know, Zona Norte is where it's at, man. Like, there's a lot of places like outside of Zona Sul where it's popping, like it's cool. So I was like, man, that's gonna be a lot of distractions for me. So I was like, all right, maybe Rio is a place I fly into for a weekend or a week, and then I just chill and kick it there, right? Sao Paulo, the same thing. I didn't like Sao Paulo too much because of the weather, and you know, they don't really have like a nice beach nearby. If you wanted a nice beach, you have to go to like Praia Grande or Santos, or like, you know, just drive outside the city, and that's like an hour drive or so. And I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to be like right on the beach, right? So trip 2, I chose Salvador, and my flight was about like, I think, 550 round trip, right? And then total in Airbnbs, I spent like 6 months the next trip. I spent like 3,900, and I think it was like six something. I already did the math, so it was like six something per month. And on food and general expenses and stuff, I wasn't eating out as much. I wasn't like, you know, going to a bunch of different places as much. So I kind of like made sure I, you know, wanted to stay in budget for like how much I wanted to spend. So that was like $800, right? So that's 650. All right. So my third trip, right? My third trip, I kind of booked my ticket into like I bought a one-way ticket, which was like $350, and then, you know, when I was coming back, I came back in the summer, so that was a peak time. Leaving Brazil to the United States in the summertime, like our summer, because their summers are different. Their summers are like I think their summers are from like December to March, if I'm not mistaken. So it's almost like inverted, right? Our winters are their summers. Their summers are our winters, that kind of thing, right? So I didn't know it was like gonna be like $1,000. I was like, damn, one way. I was like, dang. So yeah, altogether, I stayed like a few months. I think like 3 months, 4 months. My third trip, that whole expense of flying in and out, that cost me $1,350. And mind you, like after the second trip, I started to bring my things and like documents and stuff. And I'll get into how much the documents cost. They're not that expensive, but I'll tell you what documents you need and how much it costs, because that's factoring into the price as well. So yeah, $1,350 on the flight. And then I spent like on Airbnbs, I spent like $750 because I spent like a month and a half or 2 months. And by the third trip, I had already like locked down an apartment, and you know, I'll factor that into the price as well. And then food and stuff, I probably spent like, you know, $320. I was cooking, you know, it was only a couple months. And yeah, that's it. And then like the deposit and everything for the apartment this depends on the exchange rate as well. So what I suggest is you open up a Brazilian bank account once you do get down here and get all your stuff together. And when the exchange rate is in your favor, you transfer your money to that bank account, so you're not like paying rent and like, you know, because the exchange rate fluctuates, and that's something that you have to watch. And it fluctuates right now, from what I've seen in the last couple of years, it fluctuates between like 4.9 on the low end to like 5.56ish on the high end. Rarely does it get to the high and lows, but it like kind of hovers around that 5.3, 5.4 range, sometimes 5.2. So like I said, when you catch it and it's good in your favor, you want to transfer your money to the bank account, right? So, so the deposit and the security is like $550 at the time, you know. So that times 2 is about $1,100. And yeah, that's pretty much. And trip 4, I was bringing, you know, the second half of my things back. The flight only cost me about $14. And it was so cheap because I was using my travel credit cards, and you can look this up. It's called credit card churning, right? I was using my credit cards to get those little promotional offers, right? But word of advice, only do this if you can pay it off immediately. I knew I could pay it off immediately, and you don't get any benefits by using your debit card, right? So my credit's already good. It's already, fairly high. So I was like, all right, let me get these credit cards because I know I'm going to make a lot of expenses, and a lot of these are travel expenses, Airbnbs, flights, and all that other stuff. So I was able to get those deals quick. Between like the first 2 trips, I already got those deals or those like intro offers. And on my American Express, what is it, Gold? Because I have the American Express Platinum, American Express Gold, and I have the Chase Sapphire Preferred. Those are all really good credit cards that you should use to like travel and make these expenses. But only make these expenses on those cards if you can pay it off. Do not get into debt off of this at all. And plus, and one thing I noticed is another reason why you should use a credit card is because when you're using a debit card, I know only for Chase, I'm not really sure about other banks, but I bank with Chase for my, my checking account. They charge you international transaction fees, and that can add up because it's like 3% all the time. But that can slowly add up if you're making transactions all the time. And these credit cards, like these travel credit cards, they have like no international fees on them, so no international transaction fees. So that's another thing. That's another reason to want to use credit cards. Again, don't incur these expenses if you cannot pay them off. All right, so let me calculate that real quick, and I'm gonna just give you like a rough ballpark estimate. These are like pretty accurate. I had to go and scroll back into my bank account, the credit card accounts, and just to like get these numbers. So, all right, so did the calculations. I spent like 25. What was that? 25 like 64, roughly 25.64 on my flights. So I spent 25.64, and then like on Airbnbs, I spent, again, this is over the period of like almost a year. 6 weeks here, 6 months here, 2-3 months here. So I spent like $57.50 on Airbnbs, right? And then food and general expenses and sightseeing and all that other stuff, I spent like $17.20. So that gives me a grand total of about $10,034. So let's just say $10,000, right? And then you also have the deposit and the security for this apartment. So that's like $550 times 2. So that's like $11,100, right? All right. So yeah, I mean, that may look like a lot of money initially, but if you think about it, right? Like I said, this is over the course of like 9 months, split over 2 years, 2021 and 2022. I really settled down here at the end of 2022. So if you think about it, like from where I'm from, New York City, it's like for a 2-bedroom apartment, and I need a 2nd bedroom for an office because like I work from home. It's like $2,000, sometimes like more than that. Like on the low end, it's $2,000. I was paying like $2,400. So like, rent prices went up like by almost 20% in the last year or so. So, if you think about it, there's only like a few months of rent here in New York, out there in New York City. So yeah, 134, and then I want to talk about the documents that you need as well. And then after that, we're gonna like talk about like furnishing an apartment, how much it costs to furnish an apartment. Excuse me. I'll show you like what my apartment like looks like roughly. Not all the rooms, because my wife and I, our room is, as well as the guest room, we're still like putting together a lot of furniture there, which we like just left out for months. Like, it's just been like that. And then also I'll show you some sites where you can get furniture like Margalu, Casa Bahia, Mercado Libre. Like you can get like all these sites. I think there's another one. I'll ask my wife between these takes. But that's where we bought all our furniture. It was like either Margalu, Casas Bahia, or Mercado Libre, and there's this other one I forget that she uses. But I'll ask her, and then I'll put it at the end of this take. But yeah, so these are the documents that you need. So let's talk about the documents. Altogether, the documents only cost me about like $155. It's not that much in comparison to the other expenses that I'm making. So let me just run through what you need, and pretty much every visa type, every long-term visa type that you need, or that you would use to stay here more than 6 months, because you get 3 months visa on arrival if you just come here without going to a consulate or anything like that. That's 3 months, and then you can extend it at the Policía de Galicia, whatever it is, the police station, for like an extra 3 months for like $25 or something, right? But you're gonna need all these documents if you want to live here long term, get your permanent residency, all that stuff. you're gonna need an FBI background check, right? And you gotta be there in the States to get these. So like trust me, I tried to, figure out if I could, stay here, get my documents, have them sent. No. That's like a hassle. So the FBI background check is gonna be like $50, and I'm gonna include the link in the description to the site where you can go fill it out. You select the post office near you, and you gotta like do your magnetic fingerprints or whatever. Like you gotta put your fingerprints down there, and only do it at the post office. I think they might do it in other places, but like most of the places I saw on their site was the post office. So I just went to the post office, put your fingerprints in, you get it in like 2 weeks. It's not that, doesn't take that long. And then there's your state and local background check, right? You gotta have your federal, which is the FBI. You gotta have your state and local background check. And depending on whether you use the police department, local police department, or a private company, it's gonna be anywhere between $25 and $40. I went with a private company because it was quicker, and because the wait time to get a police background check in New York City was like 2 months, and I was like, yo, I don't have that type of time, so let me just use a private company. So that was like $40. And then you need a special type of birth certificate, not your regular birth certificate. It's called a long form birth certificate. I didn't even know what a long form birth certificate was before this, right? And basically in New York, and I'm not sure if it's like this in other states, let me know in the comments. I'm not really sure, but in New York, it's like a half a page is your birth certificate. It just has like your name, your dad's name, your mom's name, your date of birth. That's it. But a long form birth certificate, you got to get from your registrar and all the other stuff, and it includes everything: your hospital, the doctor that birthed you, the date and time that you were born. It's like a long piece of paper. And it's signed and stamped and sealed by your state registrar, and it has like all the information about your birth. Like I haven't even seen any of this data before, so that was the first time I saw it. And yeah, so that was like $25. It comes in like anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks, and you want to give yourself ample time to get these documents. So you need to stay. That's why I had to come back and between my second and third trip to get these documents. Not only because I had to be there in person, but because it takes such a long time to if you don't book and do all these things early, it could take a few months, especially if you don't know what you're doing. Like if I didn't know that I could go to a private company and get my my police background checks, I would have stayed an extra month and a half more than I needed to. And then the last document you're gonna need is what is it? It's gonna be like a bill in your name. So like a cable bill, a water bill, something that has your full name, your full legal name, and your address. So that's free. I guess you can just go print a bank statement, or not a bank statement, a bill statement. But you also need a bank statement though, which is also free. You just print out your bank statement and all that stuff, right? So those are the documents you need, and then you're gonna have to do an apostille for each document. So in New York, I think it's about $10 per apostille. And apostilling is like you go to your registrar's office, and they have some cream colored thick paper that they write, and then first they sign and stamp your document with a special stamp, and then they attach this other cream paper to the front of the document, and they sign it, and then they stamp that document, and they say, yeah, this is this person is who he said he is, this document is verified, it's real, blah blah blah. There's 2 stamps. They stamp your document, let's say your FBI background check, right? They stamp that, then they put this other caramel thick paper in front of it, and then they have this official stamp and letterhead, whatever that they have, and they attach it to that. So that's basically apostilling a document. I would show you mine, but I'm just too lazy. It's somewhere around here. So yeah, you got to get it. Apostille costs different. It's different prices in different states. I think it's $10 in New York City. I haven't done it in a year, so it's probably around that still. So yeah, that grand total was it was $155, I believe, right? I think I included the price of the apostille, and did I? Yeah, I think I did. So yeah, just budget. Again, you're probably in a different state, so it's gonna be anywhere between $150 to $170 anyway. So yeah, that just brings it up to what, 1,100 or 11,000, almost 300. Yeah, I'm gonna just guesstimate and say that. Plus I'm gonna say 155. Yeah, it's 11,289. So $11,300, right? So far. Again, this is split over the course of a long period of time. So yeah, I'm gonna break down how much the furnishing of the apartment was, and then show you the different rooms that are furnished, so you can see what kind of furniture you can get for different types of prices. And I think this is pretty much all the expenses, the documents, the trips I had to take, furnishing the apartments, and the apartment, and that's pretty much it. I don't think there's anything else that I'm missing. Am I? I don't think so. That's pretty much it. So this is going to give you a rough estimate of what you're going to, again, spend over a period of time, because you're not going to just move there overnight. You're going to see if you like it, see what you don't, because any country you're living in, and even the country that you're living in now, there's things that you like and there's things that you don't like. Because if there wasn't anything that you don't like, you probably wouldn't be watching this video. So you got to figure out what those are before make that commitment to uproot your whole life and live in a different country. Um, so yeah, I'm going to include the links to a lot of sites, and there's one particular site where you can like analyze the cost of living between your city and whatever city your target city is. It's called Namibo, and I'll include the link in the description and maybe some screenshots here. Um, and also, yeah, like I said, I'll have the page, like I'll have like the links to the CNBC pages where it's like millennials and Gen Z people like myself who have like moved to Bali, moved to Thailand, moved to South Africa, moved to this place, moved to that place, moved to Mexico. It's happening a lot, right? So, I'm not crazy. This is very possible. And I want to include some of those stories to validate my experience. This is something that's new. The world is especially after, the events of 2020. Um, and it's proven that we can all work from home. A lot of these companies like Amazon, Netflix, Facebook, all these companies grew during the pandemic. So that was more proof that we can work from home and be efficient at it. And a lot of companies are starting to experiment with like full work from home and like 4-day work weeks. So fundamentally, the world is changing and globalization is happening a lot more, and more people are starting to do what I did. So I want to show people that it's extremely possible, and like the main purpose of this video is to show you what that expense looks like, right? So I hope I did a good job. Let me know if there's anything I didn't explain in the comments. And without further ado, I'm going to show you like, what type of furniture you can get, where to get these furniture, the screenshots and all this other stuff with like the different websites that I mentioned. And then I will come back and give you a grand total of everything. Okay.
What's going on, everybody? Real quick, I want to just take you through a tour of the kitchen and just show you how much everything costs. That is the fridge right there. That costs about $478 to like $500. That's the like average price of a fridge. That this whole cabinet unit didn't come with the apartment. Had to like buy it and install it, and that cabinet unit cost about what was it? $250. The microwave was like about $100. Air fryers you can see over here, that was about $100. All like the pots and pans and all that stuff that you see. Okay, yeah, that I have some other ones under the sink. Can't really see that. That probably costs like a $150 because I have a bunch. Then that little filter thing, a lot of Brazilians have that little filter thing. That's like about $40. Yeah, I think that's it. The stove was about $114. And yeah. Okay, now we're on to the living room. I'm gonna give you like a little panorama view real quick before I just like go through everything. And yeah, that's the TV. That was like $650. This little like cabinet set right here on the side, that white thing, that was like $150. That little curved lamp thing, that was like another $125. That little beige chair is like $175. Those paintings were like $120 each. The couch is my wife's couch, so that was like free. The TV stand, that was like about $200. Then the tables with all the chairs about like $250. And yeah, the carpet was like $40. And the curtains, my wife made the curtains, so that was free. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it as in terms of what's in this living room. So yeah. All right, guys, so this is my office space. I'm just going to take you through real quick. I have a lot of equipment, just a disclaimer, because I do, online tutorials and courses, and I work multiple jobs in tech, and I'm just a techie. I have a lot of gadgets. But yeah, the things that you probably need is an office chair, table, shelf, and all that other stuff, which I have here. That chair, that's about $175. The shelf behind me is about $45. Or behind those two screens right there. And that mahogany desk with the two screens on it, that's about what was it, $60, equivalent of $60. And this little cabinet thing here, that's about $40 as well. All right, and the gaming desk was probably the most expensive thing here. That's like $200. Each one of the screens I thrifted it was like $150 a piece. And the carpet on the floor is about $125. That was another expensive thing. And then the other white desk I got for my wife. So again, these are just things that you might need if you're doing some of the things I'm doing, but not necessary. All right, people. So long story short, it cost me about $15,000. I rounded up. but it cost me about $15,000 to move out here to Brazil. Now, keep in mind, this is me spending this money over the course of my several trips and between 2 calendar years. So keep that in mind. I didn't just spend this all at once. This was like, most of that was like accommodation, and like a lot of it was like equipment and stuff that I was spending money on. Very little of it was like actually application fees. It's like 0.0001% of that was like, I mean, the application fees and all that other stuff, like the paperwork, that doesn't cost money. What really costs money is your plane tickets, your accommodation, and all the appliances and other electronics that you have to buy and bring with you and pay excess luggage for. Because to lug all this equipment here back with me to Brazil, that did cost a bit of money. You know what I mean? All these screens and these equipments and stuff like that, and computers and all that other stuff, like that cost money. So I had to, pay excess luggage and have several, go several trips. Even now, I'm about to go back to the States and get a couple electronics. So I'm gonna be there for a week and come back. Um, but yeah, that's the cost. That's the price you pay. Like I don't got Amazon out. I mean, there's Amazon, but like they take a little bit. It's not one day. It's definitely not one day. So yeah, you do have some trade-offs. Like electronics is like dumb expensive out here. So that's one of the trade-offs. Overall, it's a lot cheaper, and I'm satisfied with my decision. And yeah, I want to make more videos like this, explaining my journey and explaining how to do things. I want to make a remote job tutorial and like how I get a constant flow of, like recruiters applying to me. So I just literally have to go on an interview and, pass the interview. And within a week, I have like a remote job. I want to show y'all how to do that. I'm going to have another video just detailing that, because without you making money remotely, it's going to be hard to be an expat unless you've got some sort of wild, crazy inheritance or something like that. But yeah, that's the video for today. Like, comment, and subscribe. That's me, Rocket Root Time.